Welcome to Muffin Talk.
Kia ora and welcome to Muffin Talk. This program is brought to you by the initiative Titi Paunamo, Study and Joy. Every 22nd of August, we are commemorating the International Day of Victims of Acts of Violence based on religion or belief. This observance was first established by the UN General Assembly on the 28th of May in 2019. It's sad to say that this kind of violence hasn't declined yet, and it even seems like it has become worse. The violence against people solely for their belief is displayed in many different ways. Today, I'm pleased to have with me on Muffin Talk Enes Kanter Freedom, who will share a bit about his story. Enes is an American professional basketball player and human rights activist who last played for the Boston Celtics of the National Basketball Association, NBA. He also had a brief professional wrestling career. Born in Switzerland to Turkish parents, he was raised in Turkey and moved to the United States as a teenager. Enes is currently in Auckland on invitation of the Pearl of Ireland Foundation, a charitable organization inspired by Fethullah Gulen. Enes, welcome to Muffin Talk. And I would like to invite you to tell us a little bit more about your journey from a young Turkish person to a professional basketball player in the United States and a human rights activist.
Thank you for having me. Well, it's my first time in New Zealand and I'm really excited. Well, I mean, I'm born in Switzerland and I moved back to Turkey when I was like a little kid. And then after that, I was just living with my family. I actually wanted to be a soccer player when I was growing up because that was like the number one sport in my home country, Turkey. And it didn't really work. I was too tall, too slow for it. And then I was like, you know what? Maybe I should just start playing a sport where my height is so I can take advantage from my height.
May I ask how tall you are?
Oh, well, I'm 6'11", almost 7 foot.
7 foot. How many centimeters is that?
That is 2'11".
2 meters 11. Wow.
Yeah,
Yes.
very tall.
Yes.
Well, I mean, I started playing basketball very late. I was 14 years old, and obviously my family was all about education, and they did not want me to play basketball at all. And then I gave my dad. I remember first time having this conversation with my dad. He was like, "I want you to be a good student before being a good basketball player. If you promise me that, I'm gonna let you play basketball." So I gave him a promise. And in Turkey, you can't really do both. You have to pick either education or sports. So that's why my family sent me to America so I can get my education and play basketball at the same time. I came to America when I was 17 years old. I went to high school in California, prep school, and then I went to college in Kentucky. And then I got drafted by the NBA in 2011 by Utah Jazz. And literally was dream came true. That was I mean, I worked so hard my whole life to get to that point, and I was like, wow, I'm finally in NBA. So it was like a very, very emotional moment for me.
Did you also study at the same time? Because you promised your father that you would also.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Well, in America, actually, it's a very cool system because if your grades are not good, then I don't care if you're like the best basketball player in the team. You're gonna be away from your team till you get your grades up. It's an amazing system.
Oh.
So yes, I was when I was in high school, I did study hard, and then not too hard, but hard. Same in college. I had a lot of tutors, and then I was trying to do the best I can to pass my classes.
So your father must have been proud of you. You were a
Yes.
basketball player and had a career as a basketball player plus your education. And what happened then?
Well, and then after that, I played 11 years in NBA. In my second year in NBA, I started well, I think it was my beginning of my third year, end of my second year. I started to talk about some of the problems that are happening in Turkey because there was this huge corruption scandal happening in Turkey. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and some of his family members and members of the parliaments who are close to President Erdogan was involved in it. And then after that, he was going around and putting innocent people in jail. He was putting journalists, prosecutors, lawyers, judges, whoever talking about this issue, he was putting them in jail. He was going around and shutting down media outlets, newspaper, magazines, channels, TVs. And I was like, I don't care who you are, but if you are fighting against free media, I'm going to say something about it. So that was the first time I said something. It became a huge conversation in the United States and Turkey. And I was like, even one simple tweet can affect this much. Good. I'm going to start pay attention about what's going on in my country more and more. So I started to study. I remember my teammates used to go out to eat and hang out and go to movies and stuff. I used to go home and started to study about what's going on in my home country, Turkey, what's going on in America, the relationship between America and Turkey, the Middle East. The more I studied, the more I realized, wow, our country is going through some very tough times. So I got to speak up. So the more I speak up, the more it bothered the Turkish government. First, I mean, my dad was one of the most successful scientists in Turkey. They fired him from his job. My sister went to medical school for 6 years and she still cannot find a job.
Because of
Just
you.
because of I'm outspoken about the things that are, happening in Turkey. And I think the saddest one was my little brother because he wanted to be like his big brother, playing NBA. He loved basketball, but because of the same last name, he was just kept getting kicked out of every team that he joined. They were getting affected so much, they had to put a statement out there publicly and said, "We are disowning our son Enes." And the Turkish government didn't believe that. They sent police to my house in Turkey and they raided the whole house and they took every electronics away, phones, computers, laptops, iPads, because they wanted to see if I am still in contact with my family or not. They couldn't find no evidence, but they still took my dad in jail for a while. But then we put so much pressure from America to Turkey with media and politicians and some celebrities and NBA players, they had to let him go. And then after that, they revoked my passport. They put my name on an Interpol list. I can now only travel to 29 countries in the world. And just recently, they actually put a bounty on my head, which sounds so crazy, but yes, I live with a bounty on my head.
You talked about politicians, and does it have to do with your belief?
Well, I mean, so whenever I have these conversations with politicians, I was like, listen, this is not about politics. I never go out there. Any of my interviews, you can watch any of my interviews. You can read any of the things that I have ever wrote so far. I don't talk about politics because that is not my job. This is pure human rights. I don't care whoever party you're voting for or whoever president you're going to or prime minister you're going to cheer for, you have to care about human rights. So when I sit down and have this conversation with them, they couldn't believe it. I was like, listen, how can a foreign government can put a bounty on US citizen head in American soil? They said we have no answer for you.
So is Turkey, from what you know, because you haven't been to Turkey for a while, I assume, if that's because your passport has been revoked, is it a country where religion plays a big role?
Yes.
Details,
I
because
mean,
I think New Zealanders are not so familiar with Turkey. It's far away.
Turkey,
But please, can you talk a little bit about
of
that?
course, Turkey is obviously a majority is Islam, a Muslim country. And before Erdogan, every religion, every people actually, I don't care what your background, your religion, whoever you are, they used to get along. But when Erdogan took over Turkey, things started to get very rough for other religions. And because of Erdogan's hate speeches and rallies, you know, if you wanna, if you're in Turkey these days, and if you want to be elected again for any position, you do a couple things. You attack America, you attack the West, you attack Christians, and you attack Jewish people. Unfortunately, the base of Turkey is so uneducated. They're like, wow, look at our leader. He's standing tall against America, tall against Christian people, tall against Jewish people. Let's vote for him. And Erdogan is using that. So it used to be a very peaceful place for every religion, But for the last 5, 6 years, unfortunately, it is very dangerous for many Christians or Jewish, especially Jewish people, to go even visit Turkey.
And tell me about your invitation to Pearl of Island Foundation.
Mhm.
How do you know about Pearl of Island Foundation?
Well, I heard about the work that they are doing in New Zealand, and I was inspired. And the one thing that I actually do, I go around the world and I meet with governments, I meet with members of the parliaments, I meet with religious leaders, presidents or prime ministers, and we sit down and we try to come up with ideas about like what can we do to help people around the world. And actually, that was one of my goals in New Zealand. And with the with my really good friends here, Pearl of the Islands Foundation, we did visit the parliaments and we had a huge dinner and many members of the parliament joined and we did talk about foreign policy. I think that is something that New Zealand needs to work on and focus on, and they acknowledged that. And they said, well, what can we do? And now we are trying to come up with ideas about what can we do here to help people around the world.
So, do you have any suggestions? What can New Zealanders do in order to be more aware? And
Right.
it is about a kind of violence when you can't express
Mhm.
your belief or your way of life. And what do you recommend to New Zealanders?
Well, when I think about New Zealand, the first thing comes to my mind is freedom and democracy, because I mean, it's so amazing. I mean, I've been here for the last few days and seeing the democracy and the freedom and the rights of humans that in this country is just so amazing. But whenever I visit a school, I was like, listen, kids, do not take your freedom for granted. It's a very fragile thing, and you can lose it in a heartbeat. Make sure you educate yourself. I think the one thing that New Zealanders or the New Zealand government can do is, um, you know, bringing awareness is good. It is so important to bring awareness. So we are thinking about coming up with some kind of like a resolution to call out all the human rights abuses around the world. But I mean, I think that is the first step, to come up with a resolution or a letter. But the second step is, I think, you know, I know that the people in New Zealand cares about basic human rights. I know they care about democracy and freedom, not only in here, but around the world. So maybe why not put in sanctions on individuals around the world and put in actual pressure on these governments?
And I know that Pearl of Island Foundation does a lot of work of humanity and
Mm.
helping people to get along with each other.
Yeah.
The other day, they organized an event together with Aroha and Z and getting different cultures together, building bridges. And I think that's something that you also try to do, building bridges and creating like a human family.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, dialogue is a must, especially these days. And I think the Pearl of the Islands Foundation is literally like the living example of that. And what we believe is, I don't care what your religion, your skin color, wherever you're from, whatever your background is, we need to leave our differences on the table and trying to find what we have in common. Because we only have one world to live, and we need to make this world better together. And that's the key word, together. So, I mean, that's what I was very inspired by the Pearl of the Islands Foundation, bringing people together from different backgrounds, different colors, different religions, and then we are breaking bread together. We are, praying together. We are, having conversation with one another. So it's been a very nice experience, actually.
That's good. I know Pearl of Island Foundation also from the Auckland Interfaith Council, where we are doing something similar, but where we are all different religions and work together
Yeah.
and show that we can work in harmony. And as you mentioned a few times, you are inspired, inspiration, inspired. How important is for you spirituality?
My spirituality is actually very, very important to me because everything comes from my faith. Well, we call it Allah, and many people call it God. Ask me to care about other people and have empathy and sympathy in your heart. So whenever I do things, whenever I speak up about an issue, I put myself in their shoes. while I'm comfortably living in America, on the other side of the world, people are losing their loved ones, losing their lives, and losing their homes. So I sit down and think for a second. I'm like, wow, I I wear the most comfortable clothes. I eat the most delicious food. I live under a very warm roof, But what about other people? So I think my religion, Islam, is asking me to live for others, not only for yourself. So yes, everything that I'm passionate about, it comes from my faith.
Thank you very much, Enes. I think that's really important,
Of
and
course.
because I think also that's with the Auckland Faith Council, we're all people of faith,
Yeah.
and we share so many core values,
Yeah.
and so that's why we get along so well. But I wish that more people would be interested in other people's faith and open horizons for themselves and for others. Thank you so much, and I wish you a good time here in New Zealand and safe travels back to America.
No, thank you for having me. This has been an amazing experience. Seeing all these people. The one thing about the New Zealanders or Kiwis, whatever, whatever we should call them, but have an amazing culture. They are every place, every school, I don't know, every place that I go and visit with people, they are giving me the most warmest welcome. So, I mean, I can't thank them enough. They're definitely one of the most kindest, one of the toughest people with one of the most kindest hearts in New Zealand. I think that's how I will explain New Zealanders. Toughest people and with the kindest hearts. So, perfect way to
And
explain them.
next time when you come back, you might have planted seeds, and then basketball will be more popular than
Yeah,
rugby in New Zealand. That would be a surprise.
yeah, one day, maybe one day. Of
Okay, thank you very much, Enes.
course, thank you.
Out there, heroic peace is calling. In the bonds of love we meet. For the world, a new day dawning and shining.